Welcome to SAT and ACT English Writing and Grammar, commas. Never put a period where God has put a comma. Words of wisdom. This is John Linneball from John Linneball Tutoring. Here's my contact information. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or comments or concerns about this video. And what we're covering here is commas, or are commas. What are they and why use them? Why do we need to know this? When should we use them? When shouldn't we use them? If you like this video, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and click on the little bell in the top right corner for notifications. What's a comma? Why use it? It's this thing here, not the arrow. So here's your comma. I'm under it. We can use them for the following. 1. Joining two related sentences using a comma and a conjunction. 2. Separating individual items in lists. 3. Setting off extra information such as parenthetical phrases or appositives. Think descriptions. And 4. Showing the reader a short pause should go there as when a related idea is being added. Think consequences. Never put a period where God has placed a comma. Why do we need to know this? First of all, commas are necessary to separate clauses, list items, and parenthetical phrases. They keep sentences from running on. They're useful for when you're joining two sentences without a conjunction. It helps you continue a thought without creating a run-on sentence, or they help you continue a thought without creating a run-on sentence, depending on how many commas you use. The SAT and ACT test to see if you know when to use commas. So you needed to get into college. You'll be expected to know this when you're at college. You'll be expected to know this after college. You'll be expected to know this even if you don't go to college. Anyway, knowing this sort of thing will make you feel smarter, and it should, since your writing will be easier to read and you'll sound smarter. Run-on sentences just make you sound pretty dumb, or putting commas where they don't belong. We can use a comma with a conjunction to join two related sentences. A common use of the comma is to place it before a conjunction to connect two related sentences, also called strong clauses or independent clauses, into one sentence. Strong clause, independent clause, it sounds like some kind of self-help tape. You are a strong, independent clause who doesn't need cigarettes. Something like that. Or Arnold Schwarzenegger, I am the strong, independent clause. Do not get in my way, little weak clause. Something like that. Anyway, it helps you continue a thought by combining two related ones. What's a conjunction? A conjunction is a word used to join two words, clauses, phrases, etc. Don't worry, you know them. You use them all the time. The most common conjunctions are the fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Use a comma before them. You could also use since as the S in fanboys. Don't care, they're all conjunctions. The fanboys are not the only conjunctions, but that's fine for now. For example, you could start with two sentences such as, studying for the SAT is hard, period, but it will pay off in the long run, period. Let's say you learned in English class that you shouldn't start sentences with conjunctions such as and, but, because, things like that. Then you could use a comma and a conjunction to make those sentences into one. Studying for the SAT is hard, comma, but, see, there's a fanboy, but it will pay off in the long run. See, we've joined two small thoughts into one larger one, which flows better. You can use a comma to set off a dependent clause. What's a dependent clause? It's any group of words that makes sense but isn't a complete sentence on its own. It's an incomplete thought, it lacks either a subject or a verb, or it contains a word that makes an independent clause a dependent clause. For example, over the rainbow and before I graduated from high school are both dependent clauses, although the Munchkins live somewhere over the rainbow and I graduated from high school are both independent clauses. So it's good to use a comma to set off a dependent clause, especially when it's used as an adjectival or adverbial phrase. For example, before I graduated from high school, dependent clause, comma, I did not get a driver's license. We can tell the phrase modifies when I did not get my driver's license. It tells us when. Never put a period where God has placed a comma. So is this person saying, I did not get a driver's license ever? No. It's just before I graduated from high school. So this person probably got his or her license after high school. So are the things going badly in your life? Wait for the comma. To To separate list items, you can use a comma to separate list items. This is a very common use of the comma. Commas are the usual way to set off list items in a sentence. Example, I went to the grocery store because I needed to buy eggs, comma, bacon, comma, and bread. The comma before and is called an Oxford comma or a serial comma. Grammarians are split on the issue as to whether or not you should use the Oxford comma or not. The SAT prefers its use, comma, so use the Oxford. See, there's a comma and a conjunction. Use the Oxford comma and don't decide an answer that uses it is wrong based solely on that. I know some teachers will teach you that you shouldn't use the Oxford or serial comma. I was taught to use it. I've gotten into arguments with employers over it until I realized, well, this guy signs my paycheck, so if he doesn't want that Oxford comma, I'm not going to use it. Oxford comma. We invited the strippers, comma, JFK, comma, and Stalin. 3 people. Or 4 people, actually. And no Oxford comma, we invited the strippers, comma, JFK, and Stalin. Okay, there's only 2 people, and I never knew that JFK and Stalin were strippers. So, oops, there's actually 4 people instead of 3. I made a mistake. Okay. The Oxford comma can also cause confusion. With the Oxford comma, we invited the strippers, JFK, and Stalin. So we have 2 strippers, JFK, Stalin. Without the Oxford comma, we invited the strippers, comma, JFK, and Stalin. So that's the problem we saw before. But there can be a problem with the Oxford comma. We invited the stripper, comma, JFK, and Stalin. Well, here, JFK is surrounded by commas, so even though the person who wrote this meant it to be part of a list, you could think it's an appositive because the stripper, then the appositive would be the proper noun that names the stripper, so, oh, the stripper is JFK. I didn't know JFK stripped for extra income. And Stalin. Maybe he just was doing it for fun. I don't know. Without the Oxford comma, we invited the stripper, JFK, and Stalin. So both the Oxford comma and deleting the Oxford comma can cause some confusion.
But I don't want your drama. If you really want, leave out that Oxford comma.
You can use a comma to set off extra information. That is a parenthetical phrase. A parenthetical phrase is extra information that isn't necessary for the sentence to be a complete sentence. It's often information that's interesting or useful, but it's not crucial. Example, my car, which I bought last November, is a bright red Dodge Challenger. It's not necessarily important that I bought my car last November, but it probably is important from the way that I've written the sentence that it's a bright red Dodge Challenger. I don't actually own a bright red Dodge Challenger. I own a different kind of car that's equally cool. But anyway, it can be important information. My car, which I bought last November, has needed major repairs 4 times already. I may need to check the state's lemon law to see if I can return the car. So it is important that, hey, I bought this just last November and it's already had to be repaired 4 times. So to set off an appositive. One particular parenthetical phrase is called an appositive, where a proper name is given for a person, place, or thing after it is already sufficiently described. My hometown is close to Niagara Falls, New York, and the Canadian border. My hometown, North Tonawanda, that is really where I'm from, is close to Niagara Falls, New York, and the Canadian border. The town is already sufficiently identified as my hometown, but giving the proper name is useful. Told people I'm from near the Canadian border, and I've had people say, oh, what part of northern Minnesota are you from? Or, oh, you're from Blaine, Washington, eh? All right, you know. So anyway, the town is already sufficiently identified as my hometown, but giving the proper name is useful, as I've already said. My 9th grade English teacher, Mrs. Relaxer, had an odd habit of sitting on top of an empty student desk and leaning back while lecturing the class. And I'll leave that to you whether that's a true story or not, but my English teacher was not named Mrs. Relaxer. All right. Removing a parenthetical phrase leaves a complete sentence. So let's take the sentence, my car, which I bought last November, is a bright red Dodge Challenger. Remove which I bought last November, and we get, my car is a bright red Dodge Challenger. That's a complete sentence. My car, which I bought last November, has needed major repairs 4 times already. Remove which I bought last November, and we get, my car has needed major repairs 4 times already. That's also a complete sentence, although it's leaving out something that's important information. I mean, if I said, my car, which I bought 10 years ago, you'd say, 4 times isn't that big a deal for over 10 years. Avoid comma errors. Just because a sentence is long, it does not necessarily need a comma. Motorcycles with loud pipes can be a very large noise pollution problem in neighborhoods near highways. Not motorcycles, comma, with loud pipes can be a very large noise pollution problem in neighborhoods near highways. We mean specifically motorcycles with loud pipes, so it's important to keep them together. If you have them set off in commas, it looks like it's just extra information that might be interesting or descriptive, but isn't that important. So you would just have it as motorcycles with loud pipes because you don't mean motorcycles in general. If you meant motorcycles in general, then this would be correct, because you'd say, okay, well, any motorcycle could be a very large noise pollution problem. Commas cannot be used in the place of semicolons when you're joining sentences. That's called a comma splice. Oddly enough, you can fix a comma splice by putting a dot over the comma to make a semicolon. So it's one of the easiest fixes if you're writing. Anyway, so again, commas cannot be used in place of semicolons when you're joining sentences. That's a really common ACT or SAT English/grammar question. Look for it when you're doing the passages with the underlined things. That's one problem I have with the ACT and SAT is just missing a tiny dot can cause you to lose points, which to me just seems like an eyesight test rather than a grammar test. Or if they put a comma in a weird place where you wouldn't be looking for it, then again, that's a real problem because my brain autocorrects things. Yours probably does too. You'd probably be, it's not even going to register sometimes because why would someone put a comma there? Anyway, other punctuation marks won't work. For example, don't use a comma instead of a semicolon to join 2 sentences. That's also a comma splice, as I've just said, and it's wrong. I like food, comma, food tastes good is not a sentence, while I like food, semicolon, food tastes good is. Funny how putting a dot over the comma changed poor punctuation to good punctuation. Alright, a little redundant, but not going to hurt you. Common sense, or should I say, comma sense, ha 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 ha. Alright, read the sentence and hear it in your head. While I waited for the store to open, I checked my email on my smartphone. Did you hear a pause where the comma is? Doesn't it sound right? You hear the little pause. While I waited for my store to open. What was he doing? Oh, I checked my mail on my smartphone. That little pause makes you say, oh, okay, this is something that's a consequence or a descriptor, but I'm setting it apart so I know, oh, all right. Compared to, while I waited for the store to open, I checked my email on my smartphone. Sounds like a run-on sentence. It sounds like maybe an excited person. Well, I waited for the store to open, I checked my email on my smartphone, and then a dog came up, and it bit me, and it ran away with my phone. Anyway, maybe a little kid or something like that. Okay. So, commas are good. They tell you when maybe you should pause for just a split second, etc. So people can say, oh, okay, this is a separate but related thought. Comma sense for appositives. Wrong. Lemmy, the bass player and singer for Motorhead, was actually named Ian Kilmister. In case you're wondering, yes, they did put the umlaut over the O, so this spelling is correct. And anyway, so this is a run-on sentence, or at least it's one that doesn't really make it easy to read. Just putting these commas here give you Lemmy, comma, the bass player and singer for Motorhead, comma, was actually named Ian Kilmister. So we could take out this whole thing, say the bass player and singer for Motorhead, just say Lemmy was actually named Ian Kilmister, which is fine if the person knows who Lemmy was. And this is an appositive, so, could say the bass player and singer for Motorhead, comma, Lemmy, comma, was actually named Ian Kilmister. Same idea. Once you've identified somebody, their proper name can be put in not parentheses, in commas to identify that person, and that's an appositive. You could use parentheses, that's why it's called a parenthetical phrase, or so vice versa. You could also just use the name and then put between commas who that person was, and that's also an appositive. All right. Comma sense for lists. Wrong. I like apples, bananas, and pears. No commas. Right. I like apples, comma, bananas, comma, and pears. Or fine, if you want to take out the Oxford comma, I like apples, comma, bananas, and pears. Commas versus dashes. Dashes can be used to set off parenthetical phrases in the same manner as commas. Dashes aren't used to separate list items, although a list could be separated from the rest of a sentence using a dash. I like apples, dash, bananas, dash, and pears isn't proper punctuation. I always buy lots of my favorite fruits, dash, apples, comma, bananas, comma, and pears is correct, or yes, apples, bananas, no comma, and pears is also correct. Notice a colon would also work here. You could say, I also buy lots of my favorite fruits, colon, apples, comma, bananas, comma, and pears. So colon can work instead of the dash. A dash can be used in place of a semicolon, but a comma can't. That's a comma splice, remember? Please remember that, it's important. I like ice cream, dash, it is my favorite dessert is fine. I like ice cream, comma, it is my favorite dessert is not. So you just put a little dot over it, make a semicolon, yay, everything's fixed. Commas versus dashes. If you start to set off a parenthetical phrase with a comma, you must end it with a comma. The same applies to dashes. If it starts with a dash, it must end with a dash. I like spiders, comma, creepy as they may appear, dash, because they kill disease-spreading insects is a common mistake you'll have to fix on the SAT or ACT. So you'd have to choose an answer choice that replaces either the first comma with a dash, right here, or the last dash with a comma. The answer has to make the sentence look like, I like spiders, dash, creepy as they may appear, dash, because they kill disease-spreading insects. Notice disease-spreading, that's a hyphen, not a dash. It's a little bit shorter than a dash, and it's used to make compound words, although people use that less and less. But I like it, so anyway. Or, I like spiders, comma, creepy as they may appear, comma, because they kill disease-spreading insects. Did you find this video useful? Please like it and subscribe to this channel. Neither action costs you anything. You'll always be alerted about my new and always free videos. Why do I care? YouTube doesn't give me any ad revenue unless I have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours, that's 240,000 minutes, of view time in a year. So if you saw an ad on my channel before or after or during this video, please know that I got nothing from it. While many people are watching these, I don't have 4,000 hours of watch time. I don't have anywhere near 1,000 subscribers, although it's increasing greatly, and thanks to all my friends who subscribed. And for the same reasons, you're not only welcome, but encouraged to share links to this video, put it in playlists, etc. I'm always happy to read and respond to constructive criticism or suggestions for new videos. In fact, please give me constructive criticism and suggestions for new videos. I'd love to know what you want to hear, what you think works, what doesn't work. And I reserve the right to delete comments from and block those who specialize in destructive criticism. You know, trollers, people who just don't get enough attention in real life, so they've got to harass people online. Or things that are off topic, you know, spammers, disturbed people, not really interested in your theory about reptilian people, or blah, 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 whoever you think did you wrong, don't want a fake Rolex, etc. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.